Good Friday and Easter Sunday morning. And I really haven't heard that hymn in years. Deborah started us this morning with a little tease about where my scripture from the book of Numbers comes from. Numbers is the fourth in the 5 books of Torah. Who wrote Numbers? Anybody know? Who wrote Torah? Moses. So here we go. Numbers chapter 21, verses 4 through 9, I think that is. They, the Israelites, set out from Mount Hor along the Red Sea road, a detour around the land of Edom. The people became irritable and cross as they traveled. They spoke out against God and Moses. Why did you drag us out of Egypt to die in this God-forsaken country? No decent food, no water. We can't stomach this stuff any longer. They're really nice and thankful people, aren't they? So God sent poisonous snakes among the people, and they bit them. The snakes bit the people, and many in Israel died. The people came to Moses and said, we sinned when we spoke out against God and you. Pray to God. Ask him to take these snakes from us. And Moses prayed for the people. God said to Moses, make a snake and put it on a flagpole, and whoever is bitten and looks at it will live. So Moses made a snake of fiery copper, and he put it on top of a flagpole. And anyone bitten by a snake who then looked at the copper snake lived. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. I suspect y'all know that for the last 10 years thereabouts, every year over Labor Day, except for last year when I didn't go, I went to Phoenix for a week to play golf with a group of guys that are just my buddies. And we had a big time. And we would play 6 days. So if I was there 9 years, that's 54 rounds of golf that we played in the 112-degree heat. It was fun. I kept telling myself, this is fun. And we played, I don't know, on how many courses, 20, 25 different courses. And desert golf is different than going to Galloway or Audubon or whatever golf course you find here in Memphis, because our golf courses are green. Desert golf courses are brown because it's mostly waste area. What green there is, I cannot believe, I can't imagine what their irrigation costs would have to be. But the one thing about desert golf is that every course is individual. It's different. And there's one thread that unites all of those courses that we played in, and I would suspect is in every course out there in the desert. And that one thing that makes them together is the sign that is always on the first hole. And then as you go along, you're going to see the same sign or some iteration of it in a different way. And it says, danger, beware, snakes. And it has this coiled snake, and it's a rattlesnake because that's what's indigenous to that part of the country. And over the years, I saw about 15 rattlesnakes at different times. And it is scary. It really is. And as I tell you all about all of this, I can see somewhat of a look of revulsion on your face, because I don't know anybody that really, really likes snakes. There was a fella that went to Kingsway that was a great, great guy. He had cactuses for his house plants and snakes for his house pets. And he was a little off the wall. He was a great guy, but I always felt, a little like this when I went in. So, the reaction I'm seeing on your face, I think, is what goes with us. It goes with snakes, because there's just something about snakes that strikes discomfort or maybe even terror in the best of us. They're unusual looking. They have sharp teeth that we don't even call teeth. We call them fangs. And they're fast moving. Oh my word, are they fast. And they're totally unpredictable. So here we are today with Moses and the tribe out there in the Holy Land, in the desert around Egypt. And in that desert, there lives a particularly vicious snake. And that snake is called the horned viper. Cerastes, if you want to get scientific and get the real name of it. And the horned viper lives and it burrows into the sands of the desert. And the fact is, the color of these mid-eastern tan copper colored sands is almost identical to the color of the horned viper. So they easily camouflage themselves and they stay hidden until it's ready to bite somebody on the ankle or on the heel. But what makes this particular serpent even more terrifying is that it actually has horns on the top of its head. I saw a picture of it, and it's scary looking, but it's kind of funny looking too. Anyway, the horned viper is not somebody you want to run up on that you're not expecting. It's certainly one that will keep you, if you're playing golf, from going into the brush to look for where your ball landed. You lose more golf balls on a desert course than any place else because nobody wants to go looking in the brush for their golf balls. So you don't want to encounter it. And it's got one other thing that's not in its favor or is in its favor, whichever way you want to look at it. That snake is as poisonous as all get out. Its venom is extremely strong. One bite would lay George out on the ground. 2 bites, and George would be there forever. I mean, 2 bites from a horned viper, and that venom is going to take care of you. So, between the horns, between the knowledge that it is extremely venomous and powerful, you just don't want to get anywhere near it. So, here we have Moses, and he led the people out into the desert, and they were so tired of eating manna, and they bickered, and they fussed, and they complained that Moses was trying to kill them with this boring, uninteresting, totally tasteless food. Rainey, if you'd been there, you'd have given them some of your Tabasco. But this was just tasteless. And they said, "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in this wilderness? There is no bread. There is no water. And we detest, not dislike, we detest this food." Well, God finally got tired of listening to him fuss. So he steps in and he says, "So you think it really is going to kill you eating this manna? At least you've got something to eat. Ungrateful people. I'll show you what death is really like." God was a little bit ticked. And at that point, the group, the Israelites, begin to encounter snakes out there in the desert. And several of them are bitten by those vipers. And at that, when that starts to happen, the people say, "Well, God, okay, have it your way. We get it. Eating a little bit of food that we really don't like isn't like death. Please, Lord, take the snakes away. We'll eat the food and we'll complain no more." So God tells Moses, he gives him instructions. He says, "Make a snake and put it up on a pole. And anyone who is bitten can look at it and can live." So Moses made a bronze snake and he put it on a pole. And then when anyone was bitten by a snake and looked at that bronze snake, that person lived. Moses chose to make a bronze snake, probably much like that horned viper that they had encountered in the desert. And it was a bronze-colored reminder of what death and what wrongdoing, what sin looks like. God told Moses that anyone who was bitten and looked at that bronze snake would live. But the kicker is they had. It was a mandate. They had to look at the snake to be healed. And that begs a question. Why? How come? Well, the answer's simple. The symbol of the snake is a reminder. It's a reminder of God's triumph, His victory over death. Only God has the power over death and life. And God is doing what with those Israelites at this point? He's leading them on a long journey to life. They may not have 5-star food, but they have enough to get along on. They may not have the conveniences of home, but their new homes are going to be filled with hope. Their new homes are going to be filled with potential. Their new homes are going to be filled with possibility. Think about it. All of us have moved from time to time. And there's always this feeling of expectation of this next move is going to be better. Well, it had to be better for the Israelites. So they had a lot of hope and a lot of expectation. And God, we see in this story, is providing. Oh, how He's providing. But He's doing more than that. God is saving. God's saving His people. And sometimes sometimes we need a reminder that God is saving us. But there's more to it than that. That snake hoisted up on that shepherd's staff represents not just the reminder that God is in control, but it's a reminder that God is the great shepherd and is leading them and us to life. And the snake is a reminder that sin, wrongdoing, can bite any of us on the heel, even the most loyal follower of God. And sin comes in every flavor. And it looks any way you want it to. It doesn't have to be the kind of sin that results in killing or robbing somebody, in stealing or adultery. Sometimes sin just means being distracted from what God is doing in my life and in your life. And sin can be not trusting God when He's leading us through the hardships that we're facing. Sometimes we just don't trust God. And that's wrongdoing. That lack of trust causes us to complain and to moan against God sometimes. It's kind of like that God has not been there through all of our trouble. And we know very well in our lives, God's been there through all of it. The problem is, sometimes, and in my instance, a lot of times, I'm either not hearing or I'm just not paying attention to what God is trying to say. So that bronze snake up there on the end of that pole is a reminder of how sin can tempt us away from walking with God and from following God through the troubles in our lives that we have. But if we follow God, He's going to lead us to a place, a new place, that has so much promise and so much potential, just like the promised land had for the Israelites as they traveled toward it. Look your sin in the eye, God says. And when you can look at your sin, you can admit your sin. And when you can admit your sin, I can and I will forgive your sin and heal you of it. But first, we've got to be honest with ourselves. We've got to look at our sin and see it for what it is. I cannot heal. What I cannot recognize is an illness.